Welcome to Kim and Angela Talk. Kim is a biodynamic craniosacral therapist, PSYCH-K facilitator, curious human, forever student, and a loving mum. Angela is a Reiki master, PSYCH-K facilitator, metaphysical nerd, compulsive learner, and childless cat lady. Come along for the ride as they explore the mysteries of the universe and their own lives, all while enjoying a good laugh together.
Hi, I'm Angela.
And I'm Kim.
And together we're Kim and Angela Talk. Hi, Kim. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, for today. We've been struggling a little bit. We're going to be honest as far as our podcast today, but I think it's all coming together in a nice
You're not
little
supposed to be honest. People are supposed to think this comes together automatically and like we're always amazing.
Well, it is magic and it will come together and we're amazing. So even though we struggle at times to get it all together. So it's good.
It is true.
Good.
It is true. This podcast has been a little bit more difficult to get done. This week one was not great for me. I needed to take a break. And then we were going to try yesterday, which was also
And we
not
did.
great.
No, but we did try.
We did pull our messages. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, so this past weekend was Easter. And it was, I don't know if it was really the whole springtime or whatever. Well, actually, it does really fit into what's going on with me, kind of does fit into the whole Easter theme if you're going to go all Judeo-Christian. Well, more Christian, I suppose. Well, mostly because I'm not really familiar with Passover, like all the things about Passover. But anyway, if you're going to go that route, it was actually pretty relevant to what I was going through, the themes of the spring and Easter and Passover. And actually, if you go the Ostara, the rebirthing process, it was pretty relevant because I did a lot of work on myself, a lot of healing work. Some might argue too much. Just saying. Because I just got to a place where I really needed to take a break and process a lot of the stuff that was coming up for me. A lot of what was coming up was from inherited trapped emotions, stuff from past life, traumas, so epigenetic traumas, and it was all stuff that I was transforming / releasing / getting out of my system to lighten my energy, so to speak, raise my vibrational energy. And so, yeah, I feel like I definitely went through a very dark time this past week or so and have come out, although I was pretty tired yesterday still, coming out on the other side of it, feeling a lot better.
That's good. That's the important part.
Yeah.
After all the hard work.
Well, yeah, and it was one of the things I was talking with somebody because I did an exchange with someone on Friday and just the whole with the theme of the season. She wasn't raised Catholic or anything, but I was, as were you. And one of the things we talked about was original sin. And how the idea in Christianity of original, especially Catholics, of original sin, like, being this like indelible mark upon your soul until you get, baptized and whatever, this sin that you're not even responsible for. You come into this world as an innocent, but no, not really, because you've got this original sin, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what we were talking about was kind of like, well, if you think about it, some of the work that we're doing when we are releasing inherited trapped emotions, when we are releasing traumas from past lives that came with us in this incarnation, that were sort of like our little gift with this incarnation when we were born. That's kind of like the idea. I mean, it's not equal, but the idea of coming into this world, even though you're an innocent baby, but having this load, this weight upon you already from the get-go. It's kind of
Mhm.
like original sin, like this idea, like especially when you have the epigenetics factored into it, especially when you think about karma and past life karma and everything. You come into this world, you've already got this burden. And so what
Right.
do you do with that? You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, inherited things that you get from both sides of the parentage that can go back generations we bring forward, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff for a little guy to be holding right off the get-go.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found really interesting, because I've been working with a lot of different people, um, inherited trapped emotions come up a lot, especially with certain heritage.
Mhm.
A lot of people, it's definitely, I was working with a few friends who are Jewish,
Mhm.
and then there's a lot of the inherited trapped emotions from them go back pretty far.
Mhm.
13 and 18 generations is what I'm thinking. Because, I mean, definitely one of the most persecuted people on the face of the planet.
Mhm.
And so having like this legacy of persecution weighing on your soul when you were born is
Mhm.
pretty hardcore.
Mhm.
But then I was working with somebody else, and their inherited trapped emotion that went back pretty far was actually guilt. And his lineage is Scandinavian. Well, you think about Vikings and all the pillaging,
Right.
plundering, and looting and raping and stuff that they did. Well, maybe
Mhm.
one of his ancestors felt a little bad about that, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is actually something that when we were discussing epigenetics in a Reiki class, one of my teachers was like, well, there's the trauma of the oppressed, the trauma of the people who are being put down or being, put under the thumb, but there's also
Mhm.
the trauma of the oppressor. And that's what
Mhm.
she was dealing with from her legacy. Her epigenetic legacy was mostly one of the oppressor.
Okay.
And so, because it's like, these negative emotions, these things that get trapped in our system, it's not, you know, like if you were, of the aristocracy or the conquering horde, you don't get through that unscathed either. It does have
Mhm.
a weight on your soul.
Mhm.
And then obviously with the people who are oppressed or who are put in the boot, so to speak, they have the terror, the fear, the dread, all the conflict and stuff from their legacy, of their experiences. And then that, of course, comes down through the line through us, as we know with epigenetics. And there's lots of books about that and videos about epigenetics out there. But it's basically the concept that like we are inheriting as we are in the womb as women, all the eggs in our ovaries are present.
Mhm.
So our children would also be not only be experiencing what we experience, that energy transfers to them, but also their grandmother,
Mhm.
and then so forth, because it goes back, right? And
Right.
they
Right.
say 7 generations, but I definitely think it goes back farther than that. And
Mhm.
that's just the physical aspects of it. But then if you think spiritually and energetically, it goes back much, much farther and can have a far-reaching consequences. And the work that I was doing, to get back to that, was very much, not just inherited trapped emotions, but also past life stuff
Mhm.
that
Right.
apparently came forward with me into this life. And it's really been, just kind of like a very interesting exploration. So much of it was very unexpected. Because
Mhm.
even though I
Mhm.
feel like I am a little bit more connected to past lives and information, and things have come up for me in experiences and meditations that later get confirmed by somebody else's interpretation or another spiritual teacher or healer that I'm working with. It's really fascinating because, like, sometimes you have these things and you're like, oh, well, I just made that up kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
But then to have someone like really confirm exactly what you saw in this meditation or experience or this thing that you felt like you knew, but like didn't actually say to this person is pretty interesting.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, what do you do with all that? You come into this world, little baby. You've already
Yeah.
got a whole bunch of junk weighing on your soul, so to speak.
Hmm.
What do you do with it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm asking you,
Too
Kim.
bad.
What do you do with
Oh,
it?
you're asking me. Oh my gosh, what do we do with it? Yeah, well, at the time, not much, but then you can see how things get attracted to you and how circumstances, come about through, the attraction probably of those kinds of things to like um, show them to you to be cleared as you kind of go through your life, right?
Yeah,
Um, and then through self-discovery and all the work that we've been undertaking, then, getting to those things and then the magic ability of being able to then release them, not only for ourselves, but going back into the past as well as for the next generation. If you've got kids, that it will also be released for them. So it's, I don't know, it's very satisfying to know that you can help heal all of those traumas and guilt and different things that still impact and work on us today that then, we go into the world and have those things with us that may not, you know, come across too great in the outside world of how we deal with other people. And we don't even
yeah,
realize kind of where it's stemming from until we kind of delve into it a little bit deeper. So, yeah, yeah, it's magical to have that ability to, yeah, to uncover them and then to heal them, to release them and to heal them for ourselves and for all others that have come before and will come in the future. So, yeah, I love that. I love that part of the work that we're able to
yeah,
do that, not only for ourselves, but it really does make a difference down
yeah.
so many different avenues. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it happens like we've said before in different modalities. Because like my very first Reiki session with Melinda was very much ancestral healing along mother's line.
Mhm.
Because I just kept getting just flashes, memories and flashes and images of these women, and I knew they're like just knowing, having the knowing that this was like all this inherited stuff from my mom. And obviously it wasn't all of it. There's
Mhm.
plenty more.
Mhm.
But knowing that that was healed for myself as well as my ancestors was a big thing. And then
Mhm.
one of the things they talk about in emotion code and body code too is like when you're having inherited trapped emotions that you're releasing, you release that from all the ancestors that you received it from, but also all of your children or your, any other descendants. If you don't, like say, if in my case, it would be any inherited trapped emotions would be released from my nieces and nephews because I don't have children. So, but knowing that, like, if they inherited that stuff, that's also been
Mhm.
released for them
Yeah.
because it's energy, it's energetics, it's, this frequency that we're all sharing as a part of this legacy.
Mhm.
But getting to release that is definitely huge. And it's certainly, I feel like the whole idea of the original sin and like the baptism is supposed to be cleansing cleansing your soul free. Maybe originally that actually had meaning and potency, but I don't think that really does today. Because,
Well, the
I
thing
was
is,
baptized. Wouldn't I have been cleansed of all this stuff? You know?
well, the thing is, maybe it's again like our work that we do. It all comes down to intention. And so depending
Hmm.
on what the intention is of the person performing the
The
baptism,
priest, yeah.
um,
Well, because
and
isn't
who knows?
there the intent? Yeah, I mean, isn't their intention really about this original sin idea of Eve taking a bite of the apple, so to speak, which really, if you go look at that, that is really about the knowledge. That original sin idea is about gaining the knowledge or becoming aware of ourselves as separate from nature, as separate from everything.
Hmm.
So that whole idea, that story, at least my understanding of it, is that at one point as human beings on this planet, we were one and one with nature, one with all, one with everyone else around us. But then this idea of separateness came into our consciousness, that like this ego, the development of ego as a separate and identifying us as separate from each other,
Hmm.
which is rampant today if we look at it,
Hmm.
which is another great idea for the whole Easter. But this idea of ego and being separate from each other, separate from nature, as if like we could exist without the planet and without everything else.
Yeah, I'm not
We
taking that
can't.
into
Spoiler
consideration.
alert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, spoiler alert, we can't. So
Hmm.
having then have like that whole idea of the original, so that's the intention. The priests have this idea that it's all about original sin of woman eating the apple kind of thing, but that's so maybe that's why, because of the idea is skewed, and it's
Yeah. Well,
not
like I
really
said,
about.
yeah, well, we know, like when we do the work, when we do the muscle testing, right? It really does come down to the correct way that you phrase it, to the intention behind it, and
Mhm.
how you need to concentrate, and how, things won't test properly if you're like, looking all over the room and thinking of, oh, what was that sandwich I ate for lunch? The muscle testing is not going to work very well. So you really need to be focused. And again, I mean, priest to priest, day to day, decade to decade. Maybe originally, like you said, maybe there was this huge intention. I mean, a lot of those sacraments that were performed, that goes back to the Carolyn Meese, I think, was it not?
Yeah,
Where she
and not
talks
even
about
the spirit.
when you really look back at all the different sacraments, including marriage and stuff, I think we've spoken about it before, or at least the two of us have spoken about it before. It's really beautiful when you get at the depth of what it meant. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to be faithful to you and you're going to be faithful to me till death do us part and seal it with a ring and we're donezo. Which is kind of like, what or at least what I grew up with thinking. But when you look at it with the way she speaks of it, it's really, by the time you get to a marriage commitment, it was really more about I promise to love myself, to improve myself, to bring my full self to this relationship. That was really what the sacrament was all about. It wasn't about I own you, you own me, that kind of a thing. I mean, when you think about it, that, if you come into a relationship saying, I'm going to bring the best of myself, I'm always going to improve myself for myself, but, as a thing that you do with other, that they're also doing that, then you are bringing the best into the relationship. It's not like you complete me or I'm expecting this from you and you're expecting this from me. It's like, it just takes a whole other look at it, a whole other dimension. And to me, it makes like so much sense. And I wish, kind of looking at how she's proposed these things, I wish religion had been brought to me in those capacities. When you go back to the communion part and the what do you do before communion? You do your first confession, all that. But when you look at it the way it was really kind of meant to be, and the spiritual component and the energetic component back in the day is so different than where we come at it now. And now it's just kind of like a hollow going through the motions thing, and really emphasizing, I know for myself going through confession, it was like, well, you're guilty and now you have to confess every bad thing you did. And when you're like 6 or 7 years old, it's kind of like, oh, what? What did I do,
I know
you
you.
know?
I know you made shit up.
Yeah, exactly. I remember standing in line with the
I
kids
didn't.
going, "Oh, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? What are you going to say? What do you?" And it was, yeah, it was kind of like, I think it was like lying to my parents, but I've never lied to my parents, but I need to say something. So now it would be lying to the priest. I mean, it was just, I just remember the horror of it. It was just so like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was, yeah, it was very strange and very weird. And yeah, definitely not the way it should have really energetically cleansed and helped, as opposed to scare the crap out of a bunch of 6-year-olds that didn't know what the
Yeah.
heck was.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole lot I could say about the Catholic Church and
Yeah, well,
the
yeah, yeah.
scars
But it's
one
just nice.
endures by being raised Catholic.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's unfortunate. I mean, I guess it's the human component versus the spiritual component that kind of gets, again, you go back to ego and power and the whole bit. And just, yeah, it's how everything, I guess, in life sort of gets corrupted and going back to the original sin of the knowledge and developing ego and what have you, right? It's that same
Hmm.
kind of thing, all about me, whoever me is, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
yeah.
if you think about it, and you do come into this world with, and I do believe we do come into this world carrying traumas from our ancestors and traumas from
Mhm.
our past lives. We are coming not in a sense, but as beings with a decided history,
Mhm.
possibly thousands and thousands of lives where we, had experiences and we brought forth traumas and gifts and knowledge
Mhm.
in a way of being and maybe something very much akin to what our actual personality is. Because I mean, you have 4 kids, and they, as you said before, they each came in with their own
Their
personalities.
yeah, their labor, their birth, and their personalities are so individual.
Yeah.
So individual. It's like it's crazy. Like you can't believe they're all, they literally come in with themselves.
Yeah.
Whoever themselves is, they come in with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in our society is so like, oh, nature versus nurture. Well, isn't it a little bit about a bit of both? It's both
It's def
the
yeah.
nature is there, and then nurturing is really important to either bring forth
Mhm.
the best of that or to bring forth the worst of that nature.
Mhm. Yep. Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, before I had them, I really having studied psychology before, I really thought, environment was a key thing.
Hmm.
And then after having them, you realize you can raise them in the same environment, but they really all individually need different things or for things to come in different ways. The information could be the same, maybe, but some need it said differently or explained differently or whatever in order to really get things across. So, yeah, it's really quite unique. And how they each handle the world, how they all see the world, and yeah, so it really is a mesh of both for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I
pretty
also
cool.
think it's interesting too, because then you look at people with their different lives, and I was talking with this about someone with the difference between big T trauma and little T trauma.
Mhm.
And some people with big T traumas will often kind of get a little judgy about it, be like, oh, you know, and I can't
Yeah,
say that
you don't
I'm
know.
totally innocent of this. It's like, oh, well,
Hmm.
what do you know? Kind of
Hmm.
thing. Your life has been so great. But again, it's not like it's just this lifetime. You don't know, just like you don't know what's gone on in someone's life in this lifetime. You also don't know what they've come into this world with. Like, you
Hmm.
don't know, like, what, like, the epigenetic history of their family history is, any past life stuff that they may be bringing into the world. But all you can really do is look at yourself
Hmm.
and what you're going through and look at how what your experiences and your big T or little t traumas have shaped you and say, what am I going to make of this?
Hmm.
How is this going to shape me and the person that I am and the person I am becoming?
Hmm.
What do I want to do with all this baggage? What do I want to do with this history?
Right.
And, it's not even like you really have to be totally cognizantly aware of your epigenetics or your past lives. Most people aren't aware of past life stuff,
Hmm.
even if it does show up. But And then I think we've also touched on this too, like people going, "Oh, well, you must have done something really bad in a past life to blah, blah, blah." Well, that's again not helpful
Right.
because
Yeah.
we're all human beings. We're all on this journey, and it's really about the experiences that we're having now
Mhm.
and how we're responding to that. It's not just about what happened in some far gone land or whatever.
Right.
But what are we doing now? Because then there's also the idea, all past lives are happening now. So,
Right.
which again
Yeah.
is one of those concepts that's a little difficult for me to wrap my head around, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to
Yeah.
understand everything.
No.
But so what are we doing with all that in this life, in this time right now,
Hmm. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And also who are we listening to?
Hmm.
Because one of the things that came up for me when we were preparing for this was we were getting the messages, and it wasn't easy this time. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting as
And
to them. Yeah.
yeah, because like the card that I got was from my medicine heart deck, my Alana Fairchild medicine heart deck. Right
Hmm.
here we go. I love the
There
cover
we
of
go. Yeah.
this.
Love that one. Hmm.
Which comes up a lot for me. And the card description is so pertinent because it's like through conscious reflection upon your ancestral legacies, you can strengthen yourself spiritually, laying to rest any karmic inheritance that has depleted your soul, while claiming the positive endowments that are your birthright. Certain elements of the past no longer need a place in your heart and are of no relevance to your future. Sift through the psychic threads of your inheritance, slowly, methodically disentangling yourself from what may have once constrained you. Liberate yourself from the struggle of your forebears, honoring their strengths and relishing the freedom you have to choose your own path now. Lay full claim to the hard-won learning of your lineage. Let their triumphs sustain and empower you to move forward in your life. Your courage to evolve honors the souls of those from whom you are descended and paves a more blessed path for future generations. So definitely very much on the epigenetics, like of the lineage.
Hmm.
So their struggles, their triumphs, as well as all the bad stuff, all that stuff you get to inherit,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have to necessarily define you because it depends on what you're doing in this life,
Hmm.
right? But the
Yeah.
interesting thing was that the specific lines of this card that were the message for me were not all beings are capable of unconditional love, and self-serving interest can distort the usefulness, reliability, and purity of messages provided. Which I thought
Mm.
was so interesting because, like, a lot of what we do on this podcast is get messages, right? They're
Hmm. Hmm.
messages from Oracle decks, and I trust the authors that we get, but I've also know that sometimes people who work in our field or in the sort of like more spiritually minded, people who channel, people who are in connection with guides, don't always have the best source of information, so to speak.
Mm. Hmm.
Because one of the things that we talk about in Reiki, especially the Holy Fire lineage, are that there are spirit beings that are guides that are second heaven. So, like, we live in the first heaven, which is this physical plane. The second heaven is like the spirit world.
Right.
And yes, there are second heaven guides that are great, that have no ego, that are only here to help you. But then there are guides who still have an ego, which is what this message is, you know. And yeah, maybe they're really helpful, but sometimes they have their own agenda.
Mm. Hmm.
So when you are listening to or working with somebody who is channeling or who is, and especially if it's not you doing this work, you know, but someone else that you're relying on is like, where are they getting their information from? Who are they working with? Are there guides? And there's a lot of channeled information out there.
Mhm.
So are there guides, ones who have, who no longer have ego? Or are they ones that still have an ego, still have an agenda, and may or may not, have your best interest at heart?
Mhm.
Because, like, a few years ago, I forgot, I think he was an osteopath, sent me a book to read, and it was about his experiences with energy healing. And he
Mhm.
was talking about this guide that was leading him. But one of the things that really struck me when I was reading it and what I told him, well, in my response to him, was like, I don't know about your guide, because it seems like the way you talk about him, that he's always kind of like telling you to do things, but not
Mhm.
necessarily respecting your free will. Because that's a key thing. Any
Mhm.
guide that has no ego is going to respect your free will, and that's why you
Right.
always need to ask them for help. The ones that you want to work with, you need to ask for help, like
Mm.
archangels, if you're into that, or angels, any awakened master, anybody who's in the third heaven or higher, who has no ego, you have to ask for their help. They don't just show up and start helping you.
Right.
Um, but it's a very powerful, that surrender, that process of surrendering and asking for help is extremely powerful and healing.
Mhm.
It's pretty much the first step, really, of any healing journey, is the surrender part of it, as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
Um, but like when I was reading this guy's book, I was like, this just sounds a little wonky, because not only was this guy seemingly like kind of bossy,
Mhm.
for lack of a
Mhm.
better term, but
Mhm.
this person, this doctor, or osteopath or whatever, I can't remember what exactly he did, but he said he would always be tired at the end of the day. So I was like, also, that was the other thing I said to him. I was like, first of all, I think your guy's a little, and second of all, you really should not be tired when you're
Mhm.
done with because that's you using your own energy. That's one thing. If I get tired when I'm working on myself, that's, because I am using my own energy and
Mhm.
that. But when you're working with somebody else, you should not be getting tired at all, because if you are, then you're depleting your own life force energy. And if you think that you're channeling energy or getting earth energy or spirit energy or whatever, but you're feeling tired, then your energy is
Mhm.
in the mix as well.
Right.
And that is also coming from a place of ego.
Mm.
So it's one of the reasons why I love Reiki, because Reiki, when all the work I do activate Reiki first. At the end of the day, I feel great, because Reiki has like given me Reiki during the day. I am empowered by that energy. I'm not using my life force energy when I work with somebody. It's all Reiki and their energy, whatever has to happen in their system, right?
Right.
So going back along this idea of, being careful, I've also heard stories of people who've gone to like psychics or spiritual things and have gotten some really messed up quote unquote advice or
Mm.
guidance from these people. One woman I work with, it took her years to recover from going, like someone had recommended her a psychic reader to her. So she went.
Mhm.
It took her years to recover from that reading, because whatever, I don't know exactly what this person said, but whatever it was devastating and really, really damaging.
Wow.
So there's the flip side, there's being careful of who you go and talk to, and
Mhm.
also having discernment in who you're listening to and the guidance that you're accepting. And
Mhm.
then and when you're doing this work, being,
Very mindful.
yes, extremely
Mindful
mindful.
what you share and how you share it, and yeah, because sometimes people
Us,
aren't ready to hear it, and yeah, you really have to be careful.
and also, who are your sources? Are you
Mhm.
working with someone who's got ego or someone who doesn't have ego?
Mhm.
When I do this work, when I ask for guidance, I'm always asking from guidance from a being of the light, third heaven or higher, someone with no ego, awakened masters, whatever. You have to be careful. You
Mhm.
have, because there are energies that are light and wonderful and beautiful, and then there are energies that are not so much that.
Right. Right.
And being really careful and mindful of that. It's a real responsibility for
Mhm.
us to watch it. A friend of ours went to a mediumship circle recently, and we were talking about this. Is like, well, the person who's setting the circle up really, I would hope, has set sacred space, you know,
Mhm.
which is do it with a casting a circle. In Reiki, you do it by doing the symbols around the space that you're working in and calling in the light of Reiki. There's different ways of doing it. You can do your own
Mhm.
space around your own energy field.
Mhm.
There's different ways to do it, but you can really open yourself up to forces that you don't want to be dealing with if you're not careful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as especially when you think about all the things that we've done in our lives and all the stuff that we're carrying forward. If we are people like us who are attracted to this work, we're probably been doing this in multiple lifetimes. There's a reason we're attracted to this stuff.
Mhm.
And so we are carrying forward energies and experiences from those other lifetimes as well. So being
Right.
mindful of that and being aware of that
Yeah.
and the and also being responsible for our own energetic hygiene
Mhm.
and how we
Mhm.
work in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Agreed. Well, it's funny because that kind of brings me to the message that I got. We can kind of segue into that if that's okay.
Sure.
Which was kind of a little bit confusing initially, but I think it all comes together in the end. But so the first card that I pulled was this one, which I was like kind of curious based on what we were starting the whole podcast of. It was from the Romance Angels deck, and but so the message wasn't particularly the card. It ended up being the card, but in the booklet, the message was sometimes you may overlook things. And so then I asked for clarifications. The clarification card came up with this one out of the past life deck, which is this one.
Funny enough, what we were talking about.
I know.
Past lives.
So yeah, so it was lessons and blessings. And then I was like, okay, I need more because I'm still not quite getting it. And then there was another message. So the message out of that was important lessons, which are bringing blessings to your present lifetime. So it's kind of playing on the same thing, but instead of the bad karma, or what people kind of term as bad karma, bringing those things forward, but to remember that there's also blessings coming and lessons coming from past lives as well, which hopefully, some are not negative. And
Hopefully.
then hopefully, or at least a mix, right? If we're going to do something, we can have a mix. So then the next message was to look at the previous card to get a sense of when that life occurred. So then that goes back to like the first card. So that was my message. So I'm not quite exactly sure, but it makes sense because I am very
Oh, maybe you're
attracted.
going to get laid soon.
I don't think, no, it was a card like this, I think. It was the time frame. Yeah. Anyway, I can definitely say that this kind of genre is definitely something that I'm attracted to, even though if I think logistically of the time frame and like bathing and bathrooms and all that kind of stuff, then I can kind of go, "Woot, doo, 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 doo," maybe not. But I'm very attracted to shows that are set in that time frame that don't kind of show all the logistics and all that kind of thing, like Bridgerton and with all the pretty dresses and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so not to overlook blessings and lessons from the past, um, which yeah, like I said, we bring in obviously an inherited thing for the gifts as we said, maybe doing this work, we've done this in previous lifetimes before, and so we're bringing that knowledge forth as well. So just not to forget the good stuff with all the analysis and healing up of the bad stuff. Don't forget to kind of maybe
Yeah.
go in and pull out some of the gifts that then have also come our way through that. And the last card that came up to do with that also, because I did ask for one more, was out of this deck, which I absolutely adore. It's this one here
Oh
with the
yeah.
cute little hummingbird on the front. And it was a card for creation. And that definitely resonates for me as far as things from past lives and things seeking nourishment from creation, and again bringing forth and all the gifts and then creating something new out of that definitely seems to be a theme for me as of late. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
So
if you think it, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you think about it, what's happening too is like, so we are in this incarnation, we are here, we have brought forward a lot of stuff, epigenetically, past life stuff, whatever. And what is this lifetime but, you know, a quote unquote crucible, which actually came up in a message when we were trying to do this yesterday, but a
Yeah.
crucible where you kind of combine all the elements of your experiences and all these energies. And what gets burned away is that stuff that doesn't serve you.
Hmm.
Hopefully, that stuff gets burned away, but there's the part of you that never really changes.
Hmm.
There's that core being of you, that soul of you that you is going through these lives and these experiences, having these experiences. So that is still there and going through this. And like, so basically the living this life is the crucible, and
Hmm.
we're going through this experience, and we are taking our lessons and we're releasing stuff, and we're each day hopefully working on becoming a better person,
Hmm.
becoming more conscious, more aware, more awake, um, more loving. So, yeah. And then reaching for that creation. Because
Hmm.
one of the things that, and speaking of channeled messages, the Sarah Landon book, Wisdom of the Council, she talks about being the creators. So, like, what are we working with? We're working with all the stuff that we've brought forward to
Hmm.
be creators. So letting go of the stuff that doesn't serve us, that we don't want in the mix,
Hmm.
so we can create our lives, create heaven on earth, basically.
Yeah. Well,
Because
I think,
in
yeah. Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish your
no,
thought. No.
no, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say that, we do get caught up in the healing, and I think that's a really important element of it. But it's also what to bring forth, like you said, for the creation now. What's the new now going to look like, right? We're exiting the other stuff and brushing it all off, and but then it's really about then melding that with embracing the creation of who we truly are. And like you said, what you can then bring forth into the world in a positive light, not to lose sight of that, because that's an important component of it, right? It's what you're left with, a truer self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And
Hmm.
it's like what's been interesting too is I feel like with the season and Easter, and we've talked about it before too, like, with spring, like, how there needs to be the muck and the compost and everything to nourish the flowers, and
Hmm.
all of it kind of just wraps itself into each other, you know, and yeah, I don't know, it's also interconnected.
It is for sure. Um, do you want to talk about the last message, which kind of like
Yes.
reflects everything that we've kind of been talking about all the way along? And it basically resays it again. So it was a past life card again from the past life deck. So definitely hitting on the past lives for sure. And it was this one, which appropriate again
Hmm.
with religion, spirituality, Easter, and all that stuff over the past weekend. Um, and it was talking about if something doesn't, coincide with your true self, I guess, of what we've kind of maybe uncovered after healing a lot of things, and people change and kind of shift from different frequencies to from where you were, to not be scared to explore, different spiritual paths and avenues, and that you are bringing, like we've said, like I said, this kind of sums it all up, bringing all that accumulated knowledge from those past lives, the positive ones,
Hmm.
um, into this lifetime, and to really then hone in on that. So to keep, I think my whole thing is that we bring with us the bad stuff, the karma, and kind of attribute that to our pains and trials and tribulations this time through, but not to forget about the blessings and the lessons that also
Yeah.
come along with us in this lifetime, to help us make good decisions in this lifetime, and to bring forward our gifts that we've also had in previous lifetimes. So it's like I said, it's
Yeah.
restating the same thing that we said before. That it's just really,
Yeah,
yeah.
because we don't need to carry forth everything
Hmm.
from the past, from our past in this incarnation, from past lives, epigenetics, or whatever.
Yeah, even just
Once we've
ancestors, our past
learned,
ancestors, right? Even
yeah,
just like if you go back, yeah.
yeah, once we've learned our lessons, once we've had the experiences, we can let those go.
Hmm.
And because we don't need all of that for the future, we need the experiences, we need the lessons, we need the knowledge, maybe, but we don't need all the trauma, all the baggage, all the things that are weighing us down
Hmm.
that would inhibit our future of actualizing a future that we want and actualizing the future of heaven on earth, or really that is here now, just
Hmm.
most people aren't aware of it. And so being able to kind of like free yourself from the struggle, and like, yeah, you do your healing work, you got to do the work, but also taking the times to recognize the fact that it's just not all that, all this darkness, all this muck that you're shedding yourself. There's also, like today's a gorgeous day outside, you
Hmm.
know, being able to say, yeah, okay, I've done this work. Now I'm going to take this time and go outside into nature and hug some trees and sit by the water, be in nature, really fully immerse myself in the beauty, in the heaven on earth aspects of this, because, I've done the work to
Hmm.
recognize that, and I've
Yeah.
released stuff. And then, it's definitely a dance. You go back and forth, when you're ready, you release more stuff. You go back into the future, because if you're always stuck in the past,
Hmm.
reliving the past, working on the past, that healing stuff, then like that's where your mind always is. You're not being future
Present.
forward at all.
Hmm.
You're not actually healing. It's almost like tearing the scab off the wound over and over again. So you
Hmm.
do need to give yourself that space, like do the healing work, but then give yourself the space to actually really enjoy life and acknowledge yourself as a creator
Hmm.
in this world, in this life. Acknowledge that with all of the stuff that you've gone through, that you've grown, that you've had your experiences, what do you want to do with it now?
Yeah. And one other point I'm going to bring to that is just kind of a more mundane kind of thing to do with that, because I think I've gotten stuck in this before. Um, Doing creative things, like, let's say, just an example, like gardening or knitting or crocheting or painting or whatever it is, that you may have like thrown yourself totally into. Um, and then maybe like one day, because you've healed some things or whatever, shifted, and then it's kind of like, well, I love gardening, but now I'm not feeling like the pull to garden anymore, but I feel like, well, I'm talented at gardening, so I should really be gardening. But it's okay to shift out of those things and go to a different creative outlet or something else that you want to uncover or whatever. I think it's easy for people to kind of, and I mean, it's okay obviously if you want to garden for your whole entire life, and that's where it's going to be at. But I just think opening up to new experiences that are positive. If you feel so inclined, or you think that maybe that'll bring you joy for right now, even though maybe before, like, gardening was your like top joy tier, whatever, but maybe that's kind of, you've exhausted that kind of, you've been there, done that, kind of enjoyed it for what it was, but now maybe there's a different thing. And I think sometimes people get stuck thinking, well, I really like that, and so I should keep really liking that. But it's okay not to like focus on it. You might still like it, but maybe it's not. So it's just kind of a more of a, I don't know how to say it, just like a more practical kind of thing, because people tend to, maybe not so much now. I'm hoping new generations aren't quite so afraid to like try new things and discover new things more so. But it was very much back in the day, you kind of like, you studied your thing, you got a job in your thing, and you did your thing, and then you just kind of like right along. But that we can be wider than that and more expansive than that, and we don't need to be constrained, because it's literally, creativity is like sky's the limit to what
Yeah.
we can try, what we can do. So yeah, so that's just like a little practical kind of a tip,
Yeah. Well,
because I
even
think
just
we
like,
might get likes, we might get likes and dislikes and stuff from our families or from our
yeah.
grandparents. Maybe they were great gardeners, and you're like, "Ooh, I'm going to be a great gardener," which is great, to learn things. But then maybe that's not going to be for you forever. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you know what I mean? So
Oh,
you could
no,
also
no.
have to say that it's just, you don't know what's yours, I guess, and what could be from somebody else, even just a few generations back, just because that's what you saw. And so that's what you learned. And so you haven't thought, oh, maybe there's other things that I could do.
Yeah.
Right. So just be open to that, because you never know.
Well, yeah, basically just being open to life and the
Hmm.
experiences that you can have. I feel like if you're going forward with the best of, with good intentions and wanting to put out positive things into the world and to create beautiful stuff, then you probably gonna do okay,
Hmm.
you know, recognizing that, as long as you can recognize that, you're a part of this, that you're one with everyone and everything and stuff. Because there's definitely people out there who have amazing ideas and can do amazing things, but their mindset is so entrenched in ego that the things that they do can be both positive and lead down to a road of destruction.
Hmm.
I'm thinking of an article I read this morning about a certain someone with the initials E and M, where I was like,
Oh,
oh.
not a
So
not a
anyway,
holistic
let's not
meaning
go there. It's not the point of this
impacts.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you
just the
have to keep the
fact
whole
is like, yeah, you gotta be holistic about all this stuff,
picture.
and also recognizing, when is my spiritual ego getting in the way?
Mhm.
When when is yeah, when am I getting in my own way, but also maybe not doing the best for the people I'm working with because I've put too much of my own self in there
Mhm.
rather than staying, you know, keeping it my stuff in my lane and letting the work do the work, recognizing that, that is just something that can crop up without you even really thinking about it, even with the
Mhm.
best of intentions. But that's also why you have to have the humility to say that it's not me.
Mhm.
It's not me doing this work. You know, it's me being maybe a conduit or a channel.
Mhm.
Maybe I said yes, and so that's why I get to do this stuff. But it's not me.
Mhm.
It's however you want to put it, source, God, energy, Reiki, you
Mhm.
know. It's beyond us, but
Mhm.
it's also us. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's beyond us. It's not us, but it is us.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
And so having that humility, having that awareness, and then also recognizing that, yeah, okay, what energies am I working with? Because like if your ego is that, and there's a lot of the idea of, I don't know if you know anything about chaos magic or whatever, but
Mhm.
people who go into a lot of like, the energy working realms, who want to work with entities, or but they're not being very selective about who they work with,
Mhm.
and it's pretty much inviting in stuff that, like, you don't know what that is. So being aware of that, and also recognizing that, like, when you are working with guides, that you really need to be very clear
Mhm.
about, this is who I want to work with, you know, where they come from, that they're a being of the light, and not just whatever random spirits
Mhm.
wandering by,
Right.
which it
Right.
gets a little weird. I recognize that this part of the conversation can get a little
It's a
weird for
cautionary
people.
tale. It's a cautionary tale, so
But it is, because if you are going to someone like us, and they are telling you things that don't resonate with you, then you got to listen to that. Or if
Mhm.
they're telling you things that are kind of, like my happened to my friend, where like are so disturbing that it, like, is damaging to you, you
Mhm.
really got to look at, like, where is that coming from? Is that coming from that person's ego? Is that
Mhm.
coming from whatever guide their ego, is that really coming from a being of the light,
Mhm.
or where is that coming from? So, because
Right.
there's definitely a lot of spiritual ego out there. There's a lot of people who are spiritual, or
Mhm.
put that stuff out there, but then they use this world for their own ends, for money, or for power, or whatever, to have a cult,
Mhm.
and so just being really kind of like, yeah, I guess
Discern
just aware,
discernment. Use your gut.
very discerning.
Yeah, feeling it in your gut. If it doesn't feel
Yeah.
right, it's probably not great.
Yeah. I'd say just be aware of anybody who's like, I can heal you. I'm a healer, and I'm gonna, everything I do is awesome, and whatever. That's
Mhm.
kind of, I don't know. They're
Yeah.
red flags. Pay attention to your red flags, basically.
Mhm.
And yeah, some people out there, even if they have a big spiritual ego, maybe they can help, but
Mhm.
I don't know. It gets
Yeah.
it gets a little bit murky and weird.
Yeah.
But I think listening to yourself, what resonates with you,
Mhm.
um, t- trying not to get sucked into a lot of stuff. Anybody who wants all of your money, go away. Run away from that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Like, my rates are in line with getting a massage. Actually,
There
go a
you
little
go.
cheaper these days, you know.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
you know, I don't know. It gets kind of weird. I know, and we kind of started off this conversation talking about original sin and stuff, so it kind of spiraled a little bit into the whole ego world and
Right.
whatever. But, that's what you get for today.
It was, yeah, it was a confusing couple of days with some various messages. But yeah,
Yeah.
obviously they're meant for uh
They are all kind of tied together.
they are.
There's
They are.
connected. They're very
Yeah.
connected.
Mhm.
But yeah, I feel like, for us, definitely using our coming from it with humility and responsibility and wisdom, for people who want to work with someone like us, or someone like us, just being really aware of you know, where that person's coming from.
Mhm.
Because I'll say, I used to kind of think, oh, if they're a Reiki person, da da da, but that's not always true either. I've met Reiki people who are kind of like, whoa, you
Mhm.
know, do
Mhm.
things that I wouldn't.
Yeah, or they may, they may s- still also be carrying a lot of their own trauma energy too, right? Like we're all
Mhm.
on different paths and we're all at a different point on our paths depending on what we've healed and what's still left to be healed. And so, that's why sometimes even somebody who knows Reiki might not resonate with you where you're at,
Mhm.
or, or whatever it is. Like, and I mean, I think that's why, thankfully, if you put it the intention to find someone as far as someone to work with, that's going to be able to meet you where you're at this time. And it's because they're already at that place as well, right? So then there's not that energetic kind of discrepancy between that could then kind of not feel right. Yes. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but
Yeah. Yeah, you really have to set your intention when you're looking for someone to work with.
mhm.
I feel like when I found Melinda, I knew it was the right thing just because, like, I don't know, like, the picture on her website was just so, spoke to me. I just felt like love
Mhm.
coming off of that image and didn't know anything about her.
Yeah, but just felt
Signed
right.
up. Yeah, changed my life. So,
Very cool.
yay! And
Yay.
here I am today,
There you are today. Yes.
7 years later. 7 years? 8 years. 8 years
Wow.
later.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
anyway,
Yay.
that's pretty much all I got to say on the matter today, except
Yeah, I
for,
mean, I think that feels complete for the messages that we had, I think.
yeah. I guess the other message then would be like, if you want to shed some of that original sin,
Want to do some work with that?
call one of us.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I'm revamping my website, so
That's going
we'll
to be
see what
part of it. No,
happens.
just kidding.
Yeah.
Revamping your original sin. Your
Yeah,
tagline.
right?
Oh,
Yes.
goodness
Yeah,
gracious.
doing some work there, so
Nice.
we'll see what happens.
Excellent.
Whoa.
Exciting.
Anyway,
Stand by. Under construction, as we like to say. It's under construction.
well, yeah, it's more like I'm kind of like really embracing my practice name.
Nice.
So
Which
this
will be
ReikiLife.com will still work, but the main URL is going to be Tree of Light Healing Arts because I do more than Reiki
perfect.
nowadays. This Reiki Life is sort of a carryover from way back in the day.
Right.
So
Where it all
long
began. Where it
ago.
all began.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll
that's
see.
great. Well, congrats on that. I'm anxious to see it once it's all put together.
Yeah, I mean, this will still be there. A static
Yes,
and tree pit image. I love that. So,
it is
but
beautiful.
anyway, yeah,
Super.
otherwise, that's pretty much all I've got to say about that for right now. I mean, I'm sure
Okay.
there's more stuff to say. There always is.
Yeah, but for today, till
But for
next time.
today.
Till next
So,
time.
are you feeling complete?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, this is Angela
And Kim.
from Kim and Angela Talk, and we want to
Mhm.
thank you for sticking with us for the whole hour. That one
Thank you
person who did.
for for that. Did you say for the one person?
You! We're grateful for you.
Two people or three people?
Maybe it's 2 people.
All of
Wait,
you.
it's
Big
4.
hugs. Oh, gosh, I got so excited I knocked over my microphone.
Ah,
Anyway, big hugs
nice.
to all of you viewers
Yes.
out there.
Thank you so
Yes, much
much.
appreciation. So like and subscribe, we're supposed to say.
Yes, like and
Just
subscribe, please.
means a lot. So yeah, thumbs up.
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, I forgot to mention I got some new decks because I couldn't wait for people to send me some free decks. So I bought, and then Sam recommended this one, the Archangel Fire Oracle,
Ooh,
which is pretty cool.
very
And then by the same
nice.
author, I also got this one, the Water Alchemy
Oh,
Oracle.
beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, can't wait
So I
till
was
they
kind
show
of
up.
hoping, yeah, I know. I was kind of hoping one of them would show up today, but I just got
Yeah,
them, so I
look
need
at that.
to bless them and all that other stuff. So
Yeah.
blah 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 blah
Well,
blah.
Hopefully they'll show
So,
up
yeah,
in future episodes. Awesome.
maybe
So thank
next
you,
time.
everybody. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. Exactly. All
Okay.
right.
Well, thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you.
day and see you in a week.
Till next time.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks for watching Kim and Angela talk. Please like and subscribe below. To book sessions with Kim, visit keycranio.com. To book sessions with Angela, visit thisreikilife.com. Thank you.